A church in Edmonton recently received an $80,000 fine for politely turning away AHS inspectors during church services. Since the case is decided, you should be able to comment. Do you feel that sentence is justified?
I don't know anything about the case. All I'll say is nobody is above the law.
We've seen a lot of mistakes made, and we've seen kind of a lack of humility and a lack of understanding of what everyday people are going through.
For 3 weeks to go on vacation during the pandemic without leaving anybody in charge, I thought that was and doing things like having the dinner when you're telling people don't get together, but at the same time so things like that,
No, I have absolutely no regrets.
The Premier's Stampede breakfast is taking place right behind me, and of course, that being said, the Premier is expected to arrive. He's going to try and flip some pancakes. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully a little better than his fueling his truck debacle. But we're here to see if we can get some questions into Jason Kenney, and as well, we're going to find out from this massive crowd of people who have come here for the Stampede, of course, an event in Calgary that is one of the largest outdoor events in the world. And as you can see, a small part of that event is these breakfasts that take place around the city. So we're going to talk to some of these people too to find out what they think about Jason Kenney and his recent stepping down from the UCP leadership.
Thank you all. How about a big round of applause to all of the dozens of volunteers putting on this morning's breakfast and the tens of thousands of volunteers who make the Stampede the greatest outdoor show on earth. Give them all a big hand.
I mean, I have only been supporting him for the longest time, and I mean, a lot of people are angry with his policies about the COVID restriction, things like that. But we have never seen anything like this before. This is once in a lifetime. So I mean, I believe that he is doing the best he could, right? I mean, it's and people are too judgmental. I mean, and okay, it is easy to criticize the government, but I think that he is doing the best he could.
I can see why he decided it was time. He obviously his popularity was dropping, and hurts the party when that's the case. So,
why do you think that was?
I think there's a lot of factors, but I think there's a lot of pressure from all the unions, all the left side of the spectrum that's pervasive in our society, and they pretty much decided that conservative parties aren't what they want.
The people in his party, they decided that he was not as effective as they'd hoped he would be, and the way he dealt with the pandemic and everything like that, that it was time for somebody else to step up to the plate and for him to go.
Do you share that sentiment?
I don't know, because I think in some ways I like what he did, and in some ways I think he could have done better. For example, like leaving for 3 weeks to go on vacation during the pandemic without leaving anybody in charge. I thought that was and doing things like having the dinner when you're telling people don't get together, but at the same time so things like that, Well, we're all human, right?
My last question for you. So what comes next for Alberta?
Well, I guess it depends on who wins this. I see it's a pretty heated race, but yeah, I hope we don't have anybody who is, and he said some things that I agree with, like some of the people, they're so left leaning, and they're just like anti this, anti that, instead of let's work together and get things done. So I hope whoever wins, it's not somebody who's so far left, and they lose sight of the goal, of keeping the province moving forward.
Protect our water. What's brought you here, and what is the message?
It's about not giving away our eastern slopes to foreign coal miners. Yeah, it's a contentious issue. Most of the Conservative Party's here, so I figured I might as well send the message.
Because this is the land of fresh starts and new beginnings. So that is why I'm happy to announce that beginning this September the 1st, we are instituting a new annual tradition to celebrate this province in a big and beautiful way by declaring September 1st, the day we join Confederation forever into the future, as Alberta Day. We rightfully celebrate Canada Day. It's time that we also celebrated this place we call home.
said a couple times that Alberta is back in a big way. I'm wondering if it feels bittersweet to be leaving at this time, or if you in any part feel relieved to be handing the reins down to somebody else.
No, I have absolutely no regrets.
A church in Edmonton recently received an $80,000 fine for politely turning away AHS inspectors during church services. Since the case is decided, you should be able to comment. Do you feel that sentence is justified?
I don't know anything about the case. All I'll say is nobody is above the law, not politicians, not pastors. And if, municipal fire department shows up to do a fire inspection, I don't care whether it's a business or a church or a government office, folks should cooperate. I think the same should apply to health regulators. So, the court, but I'm not going to criticize a judgment or a court when I don't even know what the judgment is. Thank you very much.
So for those who aren't aware, could you introduce yourself?
Todd Loewen, MLA Centerpiece.
And as well, so what's brought you out here to the pancake breakfast?
Well, it's a good place to meet a lot of people. A lot of politically active people are here. So obviously running for the UCP leadership and for Premier of Alberta, it's a good place to be to talk to a lot of people. And there's a lot of great people here to chat with, I'm sure.
And some of the candidates have mentioned a kind of apology tour based on the last 2 years of the lockdown restrictions. There's been a lot of damage that's come from that. Whether or not there was good that came from it. What do you think about a sort of apology tour? What do you think about the individuals who, for the last 2 years, have been suffering over these restrictions?
It's too bad. There's been a lot of suffering. A lot of individuals, a lot of families have been suffering. Businesses have been suffering. We've seen a lot of that, and it's really too bad. I think there was other ways to handle this situation that would have been a lot less damaging. When we see the divisiveness that it's caused too, I think that's very, very problematic. And myself, I stood out against a lot of the stuff right from the start. So on my end, I've been proud to stand up for Albertans and for the people that were lacking a voice the last 2 years.
Well, and I don't mean for this to sound harsh, but do you think Jason Kenney shares that sentiment, even though, as we see with the UCP leadership, he had to step down because his followership, his support was rapidly declining? Yeah, and that's it. I mean, we've seen a lot of mistakes made, and we've seen kind of a lack of humility and a lack of understanding of what everyday people are going through. And that was something that led to the Premier having to step down. And I think it's good. We have a chance to renew the party, get things back on track. And I'm looking forward to helping the party grow. And I'm looking forward to this leadership race and how it turns out. Hopefully I can become the leader in the end, become the Premier of Alberta. I think there's a lot of people that need to be listened to, and I'll be happy to listen to them and make things happen. Well, and if I could ask, what makes you different, or what makes you stand out from the rest of the candidates?
Well, I think there's, when we look at what people have been going through the last couple of years, again, they felt like they haven't had a voice, and but a lot of them have looked to me as a bit of hope, and probably an understanding of what the average person's going through. And it's been difficult for a lot of people, and I guess I feel like I can bring that and bring those people and that have felt that they were unheard for the last 2 years, and give them that opportunity to show that we're listening. We want to get things back on track, and we want to get everybody going in the right direction again.
My last question for you, assuming that you wouldn't impose a lockdown, but the lockdown phase comes in the fall, let's say, as a lot of people kind of expect, what would you do to protect religious freedoms in this province, especially as we've seen Pastor Artur Pawlowski, Pastor Tim Stevens, Pastor James Coates all spend time behind bars for sticking to their faith? Is there any protections you would have for them?
Yeah, we should have never been arresting pastors. When we look back at how that unrolled, it was very unfortunate. We need to protect religious freedoms and actually all freedoms. When we look at people that have lost their jobs because of mandates and vaccine passports, that should have never happened either. And I spoke out against them right from the start too. And I think it's when we look at healthcare workers, for instance, who were considered heroes all the way through the pandemic, and then we threatened to fire them, and then actually fired them, and then afterwards said, you know what, we can bring you back again. That was cruel, inhumane treatment. I can't imagine the people, what they would go through in their lives, not knowing if their source of income was going to be lost like that. So again, we need to stand up against things like that. There's other ways to take care of the situation, but that was the worst way to go.
So you heard what Jason Kenney had to say, and you heard what the people had to say, and on top of that, we heard what one of the UCP candidates had to say about what could be the future Premier's rendition of Alberta. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, go to Rebel News to see the latest. I want to thank you all. For Rebel News, I'm Sidney Fazzard. Jason Kenney is going to be out of office soon, so if you want to find out who's going to replace him, you got to go to ucpleadership.ca.